GM everyone. Today we are going to read the Bitcoin Whitepaper, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So I've been in the crypto space for over a year now, and I haven't read the Bitcoin Whitepaper. Like me, most of the people haven't read this. So I'm gonna take the hard pill and going to read the Bitcoin Whitepaper and probably explain it along the way. I'm really dumb, so I don't know if I am qualified enough to explain this. But let's see. Bitcoin, a peer to peer electronic cash system. Satoshi Nakamoto, of course, the OG Satoshi abstract. A purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. So decentralization. Digital signatures provide a part of solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spending. We propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer network. Okay, the network timestamps transaction by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming a record that cannot be changed without redoing the proof. The longest chain not only serves as proof of the sequence of event witnessed, but the proof that it came from the largest pool of CPU power. Okay, as long as majority of CPU power is controlled by nodes that are not cooperating to attack the network, they'll generate the longest chain and outpace attackers, of course. The network itself requires minimal structure. Messages are broadcasted on a best effort basis, and nodes can leave and rejoin the network at will, accepting the longest proof of work chain as proof of what happened while they were gone. Okay, interesting. Share. Nice. Let's let's read the introduction. Introduction. Commerce on the internet has come to rely at most exclusively on financial institutions serving as trusted third parties into process electronic payments. While the system works well enough for most transactions, it still suffers from inherent weakness of trust-based models. Of course, because there is a central authority. Completely non-reversible transactions are not really possible since financial institutions cannot avoid mediating disputes. Of course, the cost of mediation increases transaction cost, limiting the minimum practical transaction size and cutting off the possibility of small casual transactions. And there is a broader cost in loss of ability to make non-reversible payments for non-reversible services. Of course, with the possibility of reversal, the need for trust spreads. Merchants must be wary of their customers, hassling them for more information than they would otherwise need. A certain percentage of fraud is accepted as unavoidable. Yeah. These cost and payment uncertainties can be avoided in person by using physical currency, but no mechanism exists to make payments over communication channel without a trusted party. And it was written in, when was the Bitcoin white paper written? When was it written, dude? In 31st October 2008. Damn. Okay, coming back. So this was back in 2008. Every online transaction was in hand of big banks and corporations. So yeah, this seems very natural to someone who wants to make a system like this. Yeah. What is needed is an electronic payment system based on cryptographic proof instead of trust. Yep. Allowing any two willing parties to transact directly with each other without the need for a trusted third party. Okay. Transactions that are computationally impractical to reverse would protect sellers from fraud. Yeah. And routine escrow mechanism could easily be implemented to protect buyers. Okay. So, but when we are implementing an escrow mechanism, isn't a third party like a third party is still involved, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I never worked with escrow a lot. So, transactions that are computationally impractical to reverse would protect sellers from fraud, and routine escrow mechanism could easily be implemented to protect buyers. Yep. In this paper, we propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer distributed timestamp server to generate computational proof of chronological order of transactions. The system is secure as long as honest nodes collectively control more CPU power than any cooperating group of attacker nodes. So, given if there are 100 nodes, if 51% of them are attacker nodes, the chain is compromised. But since it's fully decentralized and anyone can open a node, I don't think there is a possibility of that. Not anytime soon. Yeah. So, second is transaction. We define an electronic coin as chain of digital signatures. Each owner transfers the coin to the next by digitally signing a hash of previous transaction and a public key of the next owner and adding these to end of the coin. The payee can verify the signatures to verify the chain of ownership. So how does it work? So the transaction works by like owner one's public key is hashed and owner zero will sign it. Why is it complicated for me to understand? So this is initial transaction. This is the transfer, I guess, transaction that owner one's private key has to sign. What the heck? And and okay, so owner one is sending this to owner two. Owner two is sending this to owner three. Okay, cool. The problem, of course, is pay can't verify that one of the owners did not double spend the coin. A common solution is to introduce trusted central authority or mint that checks every transaction for double spending. After each transaction, the coin must be returned to mint to issue a new coin. And only coins issued directly from the mint authority, are trusted, not the double spent. Okay. The problem with this solution is that the fate of entire money system depends on the company running the mint, with every transaction having to go through them, just like a bank. We need a way for pay to know that previous owner did not assign any earlier transactions. For our purposes, the earliest transaction is the one that counts. So we don't care about later attempts or to double spend. The only way to confirm absence of a transaction is to be aware of all the transactions. In the mint-based model, the mint was aware of all transactions and decided which arrived first. Yeah. Accomplish this without a trusted party, a transaction must be publicly announced. We need a system for participants to agree on a single history of order in which they were received. The PE needs proof that at the time of each transaction, the majority of the notes agree that it was first received. I guess I understand it, partially. Third, the timestamp server. The solution we propose begins with the timestamp server. A timestamp server works by taking a hash of a block of items to be timestamped and widely publishing the hash, such as a newspaper or Usenet post. That's a reference, yeah. The timestamp proves that data must have existed at the time, obviously, in order to get into the hash. Each timestamp includes the previous timestamp in its hash, forming a chain with each additional timestamp reinforcing one before. So, yeah. So, this is a block, this is a hash, this is a hash. Okay. So, proof of work. To implement a distributed timestamp server on a peer-to-peer basis, we need to use a proof of work system similar to Adamback's Hashcash. Interesting thing, I think I should check it later. Rather than a newspaper or Usenet post, the proof of work involves scanning of a value that, when hashed, such as with SHA-256, the hash begins with the number of 0 bits. The average work required is exponential in number of 0 bits required that can be verified by executing a single hash. What the I don't get that. For our timestamp network, we implement the proof of work by incrementing a nonce in the block until a value is found that gives block hash that requires 0 bits. Okay. Once the CPU effort has been expended to make it satisfy the proof of work, the block cannot be changed without redoing the work, of course. As later blocks are changed after it, the work to change the block would include redoing all the blocks after it. So if you're changing one block, one particular block in a chain, you have to change all the blocks after it. So that's why you can't change. That's why a data on chain is immutable. Damn, interesting stuff. So, like, yep, block is forming. There were transactions. Then we had a timestamp server, and now we have a block, a chain of blocks, you might say. So the chain of block will have its previous hash, a nonce, and the transaction instruction. The proof of work also solves the problem of determining representation in majority decisions making. If the majority were based on one IP address, one vote, it could be subverted by anyone able to allocate many IPs. Proof of work is essentially one CPU, one vote. The majority decision is represented by the longest chain, which has the greatest proof of work effort invested in it. If a majority of CPU power is controlled by honest nodes, the honest chain will grow fastest and outpace any competing chains. Yep. To modify a past block, an attacker would have to redo the proof of work for all the blocks after it and then catch up and surpass the work for honest nodes. We will show later that the possibility of slow attacker catching up diminishes exponentially as subsequent blocks are added. To attack a chain, to tamper something in the chain, you first like have to decide a particular block that you want to attack, and when you are able to attack that, then you have to compete with like the original chain. You have to redo all the transactions after this and catch up to the chain and do all the transactions after it to begin the to surpass the honest chain, and that is really hard to do because uh, there is some uh, will we will read that in this spoiler warning. To compensate for increasing hardware speed and varying interest in running nodes over time, the proof of work difficulty is determined by a moving average targeting an average number of blocks per hour, and if they are generated too fast, the difficulty increases. So, of course, the difficulty of blockchain increases to compensate for the increasing hardware and running nodes over time, because over time there would be more miners, yes, more awareness. They were visionary people. Fifth, the network. The steps to run the network are as follows. New transaction broadcast to all nodes. Each node collects new transaction into a block. Each node works on finding a difficult proof of work for its block. When a finds a proof of work, it broadcasts the block to all nodes. Node accept the block only if all transactions in it are valid and not already spent. Okay, so on Bitcoin, also a transaction is atomic. Node uh, expresses their acceptance of block by working on creating the next block in the chain using the hash of accepted block as the previous hash. Nice. Simple enough. Nodes always consider the longest chain to be the correct one and will keep working on extending it. Fuck. If two nodes broadcast different version of next block simultaneously, some nodes may receive one or the other first. In that case, they work on the first one they receive, but save the other branch in case it becomes longer. The tie will be broken when the next proof of work is found and one branch becomes longer. The nodes that were working on the other branch will switch to the longer one. New transaction broadcasts do not necessarily need to reach all nodes. Yep. As long as they reach many nodes, they will get into a block before Block broadcasts are also tolerant of dropped messages. If a node does not receive a block, it will request it when it receives the next block and realize if it missed one. Okay. So far, we have a pretty solid chain of blocks that no one can tamper. Incentive. Okay. By convention, the first transaction in a block is special transaction that starts a new coin owned by creator of block. The first transaction in a block is called the genesis hash, I guess. But yeah, this adds an incentive for nodes to support the network and provides a way to initially distribute coins into circulation since there are no central authority to issue them. Damn, that is so smart. The steady addition of constant amount of new coins is analogous analogous to gold miners expending resources and adding gold to circulation. In our case, in the case of Bitcoin, it is CPU time and electricity that is expended. Okay, so here we get the concept of miners. The incentive can also be funded with transaction fees. If the output value of a transaction is less than its input value, the difference is a transaction fee that is added to incentive value of the block containing the transaction. Once predetermined number of coins have been entered in circulation, the incentive can transition entirely to transaction fees and completely inflation free. Okay, so once every Bitcoin is mined, so like there are 21 million or something. How many Bitcoins are there in circulation? I think it's 21 million, but okay, so it's 19 million. Oh, so okay, damn. So there are 21 million Bitcoins, and as of now, 19.9 million Bitcoin has been mined. Crazy, crazy. So as we are reaching a point where every Bitcoin will be mined, so how will the miners will be incentivized after that? So the answer is transaction fees. The incentive may help encourage nodes to stay honest. Yep, of course. Uh, if a greedy attacker is able to assemble more CPU power than all honest, he would have to choose between using it to defraud by stealing back his payments or using it to generate new coins. He ought to find it more profitable to play by the rules, such rules that favor him with more new coins that everyone else is combined that to undermine the system and the validity of his own wealth. Damn, that is so smart. So, if someone is able to assemble a CPU with more power than all of the nodes combined, somehow he has a quantum computer or something, and for him it would be more profitable to mine Bitcoin, uh, to be a honest node than to attack Bitcoin, because he will get a valid wealth, you know, real money, quote unquote. Okay, reclaiming disk space. Once the latest transaction in a coin is buried under enough blocks, they spend enough blocks. The spent transaction before it can be discarded to save disk space. To facilitate this without breaking the block, hash transactions are hashed in a Merkle tree. Okay, this type of structure with only one root included to blocks hash. Old blocks can be compacted by subbing of branches of tree. The interior hashes do not need to be stored. Okay. A block header with no transaction would be about 80 bytes. If we suppose block are generated every 10 minutes, 80 bytes into 6 into 24 into 365 would be 4.2 MB per year. With computer systems typically selling with 2 GB of RAM as of 2008, damn, the morals for predicting the current growth of 1.2 GB per year, the storage should not be a problem if block headers must be kept in memory. Okay, damn. Would be fast as fuck and it's efficient as fuck. Crazy. Simplified payment verification. Is it? It is possible to verify payments without running a full network node. A user only needs to keep a copy of the block header of the longest proof of work chain, which he can by querying network nodes until he's convinced he has the longest chain and obtain the Merkle branch, linking the transaction to block its timestamped in. He can't check the transaction for himself, but by linking it to a place in chain, he can see a network node that has accepted it, and the block added after it further confirms the network has accepted it, because the network only adds blocks after it has accepted it. So yeah, crazy proof of work chain. As such, verification is reliable as long as honest node control the network, but it is more vulnerable if network is overpowered by an attacker. While network nodes can verify transaction for themselves, the simplified method cannot be fooled by an attacker's fabricated transaction for as long as the attacker can continue to overpower the network. One strategy to protect against this would be to accept alert from network nodes when they detect an invalid block, prompting the user software to download the full block and alerted transactions to confirm inconsistency. Businesses that receive frequent payments will probably still want to run their own nodes for more independent security and quicker verification, of course. So far, we have covered a lot of stuff. This is crazy. This thing is crazy. Bitcoin is genius for its time, and as for now, it is like crazy. Anyways, combining and splitting value. Although it would be possible to handle coins individually, it would be unwieldy to make a separate transaction for every cent in a transfer. Yep. To allow value to be split and combined, transaction contain multiple inputs and outputs. Normally, there will be either single input from larger previous transaction or multiple inputs combining small accounts, and at most two outputs, one for the payment and one for the returning change, if any, back to the sender. So there can be multiple transactions in, but only two transactions, only two outputs. It should be noted that fan out, where a transaction depends on several transactions and those transactions depends on many more. It is not a problem here. There is never the need to extract a complete standalone copy of transaction history. Okay, why? Privacy. The traditional banking model achieves a level of privacy by limiting access to information to the parties involved in trusted third party. The necessity to announce all transactions publicly preludes this methods. The privacy can be maintained by breaking the flow of information in another place. By keeping public keys anonymous, the public can see someone is sending an amount to someone else, but without the information linking the transaction to anyone. So, like, the sender and receiver both are anonymous on chain until you are using domains. This is similar to level of information released by stock exchange, where the time and size of individual trades tape is public, but without telling who the parties were. Traditional privacy model identities transactions, third party, trusted third parties, counterparty, and public can't see anything. And the new privacy model identities are anonymous and transactions are public, which is crazy. Think about this in 2008, but damn, we got some crazy people. Let me let me tweet this. Anyways, as an additional firewall, a new key pair should be used for each transaction to keep them from being linked to a common owner. Okay, some linking is unavoidable with multi-input transactions, which necessarily reveal that their input were owned by same owner. The risk is that if the owner of a key is revealed, linking could reveal other transactions that belong to same owner. Okay, once you are doxed, there is no going back. Calculations. Okay. We consider the scenario of an attacker trying to generate an alternate chain faster than the honest chain. Even if this is accomplished, it does not throw the system open to arbitrary changes, such as creating value out of thin air or taking money that never belonged to attackers. Nodes are not going to accept any invalid transaction as payment, and honest nodes will never accept a block containing them. Okay, how? Why? An attacker can only try to change one of his own transaction to take back money he recently sent. Okay. The race between the honest chain and attacker chain can be characterized as binomial random walk. The success event is honest chain by being extended by one block, increasing its lead by one plus one, and the failure event is attacker's chain by extended by one block, reducing the gap between. I don't understand. I don't get this. Okay, so so if this is the honest chain and this is the the attacker chain, for every honest for every success event on the honest chain, this gap increases by one, and for every this gap increases by one, uh, and the failure event is the attacker's chain, uh, and it's being extended like, and the failure event like on the attacker's chain will reduce the gap by one. So there always would be some gap between these, and this will never meet because this will always be extending, and this will always be like trying to catch up with, but will never catch up. This is what I understand by this. And let's just Google what a binomial random walk is. A binomial random walk is a dimensional random walk where each step is an independent. Okay. Okay. The probability of an attacker catching up from a given deficient is analogous to gambler's ruin problem. What the fuck is gambler's ruin problem? Gambler's ruin problem describes the gambler's ruin problem describes the probability of a gambler with a finite amount of money losing all their money ruin on reaching a target amount of money before they are. Yes, use of Bitcoin fixed probability. Damn. I'm fucking tweeting this. So, suppose a gambler with unlimited credit starts at a deficit and plays potentially an infinite number of trials to try to reach break even. We can calculate the probability he ever reaches break even or an attacker ever catches up with the honest chain as follows. Probability of an honest node finding the next node. Q would be probability of attacker find the next block, and QZ would be probability of attacker will even catch up. So I don't fucking understand this shit. So the probability of an attacker even catching up from the Z block behind is equal to one upon probability of the attacker finds the next block divided by the probability of an honest node finds the next block to the power of Z, where Z is the blocks behind, and also P also. Okay, so if P is less than equal to Q, damn, it's interesting. I get it, and I want to tweet it. Cool. So if P is less than equal to Q, then the probability of attacker will even catch up from Z block would be one, and if P is greater than Q, it would be Q divided by P to the power of Z, where Z is the blocks behind. So there is a chance, I guess, given our assumption that P is greater than Q and the probability drops exponentially as the number of blocks the attacker has to catch up increases, with the odds against him if he doesn't make a lucky lunge forward early on. His chances become vanishingly small as he falls further behind. Well, now we consider how long the recipient of a new transaction needs to wait before being sufficiently certain that sender can't change the transaction. We assume the sender is an attacker, who wants to make the recipient believe that he paid for a while, then switch it back to pay back to himself after some time has passed. The receiver will be alerted when that happens, but the sender hopes it will be too late. Okay, the sender is a scammer. The receiver generates a new key pair and gives the public key to sender shortly before signing. Okay. This prevents the sender from preparing a chain of block ahead of time on working on it continuously until it's lucky enough to get far enough ahead. He then executing the transaction at the moment. Once the transaction is sent, the dishonest sender starts working in secret on a parallel chain containing the alternate version of its transaction. The recipient waits until the transaction has been added to the block and Z blocks have been linked after it. Yep. He doesn't know the exact amount of progress the attacker has made, but assuming the honest block took average expected time per block, the attacker's potential progress will be Poisson distribution with expected value of this lambda equal to CP by Q. To get the probability, the attacker could still catch up now. We multiply the Poisson density for each amount of progress he could have made by probability that he could catch up with that point. Probability, I was strong in probability by the way in college. So the summation from k equal to 0 to infinite is equal to lambda. Yeah, yeah, k factorial. I know some stuff. Okay, I'm not dumb, but okay, there is a C code. I understand code. Oh, then it's simple. Anyways, converting to code, attackers success probability. We should run this code. What the heck? Let's let's just explain the code. Uh, a double attacker success probability. This it will take a Q and C. Q would be the current. Q was the probability of the attacker finds the next block. And how I'm going to get that, I don't know. P is equal to 1 minus Q. Okay. So P, the probability of the honest node finding the next block would be 1, like the 100% minus the probability of the attacker finding the next block. Okay. Lambda is equal to Z into, yeah, and summation, so sum is equal to 1, so sum of all probability is equal to 1. Then there is int I and k, and for k is equal to 0 we run it till c, uh, and the Poisson will be exponential of negative of lambda. I fucking forgot how Poisson works. And in that we just make the product of Poisson into lambda upon I. Okay, interesting. And at the end we return the sum. And before, so the initial probability, we are assuming that attacker success probability is 1 initially, but after this we will get a distribution, Poisson density or something, and if we subtract that from our summation, we'll get a value that is we will get a value that is the probability of attacker success probability. So let's run this code, baby. Yeah. Now we just call this function. I'm assuming the probability is 40%. Let's give some credit to attacker. And I don't know what to put here. Like, what is the block between? Let's say 10. I don't know. No, are these numbers? But anyways, can I just do uh, and oh, double e is equal to this, and printf a. Okay, run. Uh, uh, uh. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Huh? I. Okay. Ah, fuck. R. Okay. How do I print? What is this thing? This is double. Yep. Printf is double. Expected const car restricted, but argument is type of double. So can I do it? How do I make it to string? Can I do car and this? Shit. In my defense, I don't write a lot of C. So I don't know. Is it backslash? Is it slash f or only f? Okay, there is a chance. So assuming if more than 100 blocks, it's like crazy. So the attacker has to be really, really close. And with the sheer number of transactions happening on Bitcoin, I don't think attacker can get that close that easily. And this is a generous number, by the way. This is a very generous number. Like 40%, usually this would be like 0.3, 0.2% or something like very, very low. But we are using this. Uh, so if it's like there is a 5% chance. So yeah, there's 5% chance, but there is only one block between them. There is 10% chance. And if they're like 50% chance and one block, okay, so nice. Okay, they have already tested this. Running some results, we can expect the probability to drop off exponentially, of course. Okay, so they are not being very generous here. Like they are saying there can only be 10% chance uh, for uh, for a 10% chance of attacker finding the next block. For zero block, like if attacker is on the same piece, he will succeed. If attacker is one block behind, there is only 2% chance. If attacker is two blocks behind, there is 0.5, there's like 5% chance. If attacker is three blocks behind, there is 1% chance. And if attacker is uh, 10 blocks behind, which is like that's so it would be like he would be like 0.00012%. uh, that would like 0.12% chance. So solving for p is less than 0.1%. Damn. Crazy math, dude. I haven't done this math since high school. Conclusion: we have proposed a system for electronic transactions without relying on trust. Yeah, this is truly trustless. We started we started with the usual framework of coin made with digital signatures, uh, which provides strong control of ownership, but it is incomplete without a way to prevent double spending. To solve this, we proposed a peer-to-peer network using proof of work to record a public history of transactions. That quickly becomes computationally impractical for an attacker to change if honest node control the majority of the CPU power. The network is robust in its unstructured simplicity. This is crazy, dude. Messages are not routed to any particular place and only needed to be delivered on the best effort basis. Nodes can Nodes can leave and rejoin the network at will, accepting the proof of work chain as of what happens while they were gone. They would, with their CPU power, expressing their acceptance of a valid block by working on extending them and rejecting invalid blocks by refusing. This was the first consensus mechanism, I guess. I don't know. Great paper, man. Satoshi Nakamoto, hats off to you. Um, Damn, it was super fun. It was super fun to read this paper, like crazy. And this is something that started it all. It was fucking crazy, dude. I really loved it. Such a simple paper. What were the implications that like the impact this paper made was revolutionary. Crazy, dude. Like I don't have any words to say. Damn, I should read more. Oh yeah. So this was it. I'm Mystic signing off, and bye bye.